are attending. So I think we're ready to begin. Thank you all for joining. My name is Guy Yedwab. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing with Explore Analytics. I'm going to talk a little bit about the solution that we have, particularly around how we've been able to help ServiceNow customers and partners really unleash the data that's within ServiceNow. A little bit about my background. Before I came to Explore Analytics as a technical specialist for analysis and data, I was actually with ServiceNow for 5 years, originally with the development and documentation side, and then eventually as a solution consultant and solution architect in the field. So before I went into the business intelligence and analytics space, I spent a lot of time with IT departments, working on how to get visibility on IT processes, achieve higher IT maturity, and really be able to unleash the value that's within IT departments. InSource is a great partner of ours, from the consulting and deployment side, and they've partnered with us to help bring this webinar in front of you today. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Explore Analytics is generally, just to set the stage, and then we're going to dive right into seeing the technology and how this can help unleash your data. If you have questions, since there's a large number of folks, you can use the chat functionality that's in WebEx. And we'll be, and I'll keep my eye on that, make sure that I answer any questions that come through there, as well as we'll be recording this, and then we are happy to do any, follow-up directly with you if you wanted to get deeper dives or have specific questions answered. So with that, we'll get into the presentation. So the reason that we're talking about Explore Analytics in terms of unleashing data is that in order to really unleash the data that you have within your IT processes, you need a tool that can make it very easy to get that transparency. And that's where Explore Analytics comes in. It's a self-service business intelligence tool. And what we mean by that is that it's aimed at non-technical users, people who might be process owners, people who might be interested parties, but not necessarily requiring an advanced skill set, the ability to code and script and understand database schemas. A lot of time in the past, what's been a barrier for folks to be able to really unleash their IT processes is that getting that transparency requires a lot of manual effort from a lot of highly skilled people. So what we've done is we've tried to provide a platform and a tool that allows you to slice and dice the data, something that's very interactive that you can define just by dragging and dropping data to be able to really understand, what's going on in your IT world and what's going on within ServiceNow or within other platforms. This data can be real time, so connecting directly to the data and showing you what's going on right now, or it can be trended historical data that allows you to snapshot this, over time. And it's delivered software as a service. So in the same way that ServiceNow and Salesforce and many other tools have revolutionized, how this content is delivered, we're web-based. All you need is a browser or a mobile phone or a tablet, and you can get this. So the net of it is that we're trying to take the ability to unleash the data, whether it's in ServiceNow or other data sources or combined across them, and put it in the hands of every user so that anyone who's interested and understands the processes can do this themselves rather than relying on a population of skilled users. So in terms of why Explore Analytics helps you unleash your data from an IT perspective, this really comes down to three things. The first is how easily we can connect to your data, making sure that we can get in very quickly without requiring you to do a lot of heavy lift and load, to be able to really understand what's going on, right, and get into that data immediately. The second is being able to easily explore the data. So, just by dragging and dropping, doing a few things to understand the data without requiring that heavy skill set. And then once you have that insight and you've unleashed it, being able to very easily share it, collaborate with others, and present it out to your service desk community so that, whether it's operations folks or support folks or executives, they have the full visibility on the data to be able to act on it, to be able to use it in conversation. Because really, the goal of unleashing this IT data is to use it to tell a story, use it to drive processes, and use it to make decisions. So in terms of unleashing the data, the goal is to make data sources very easy to add, something that takes minutes to set up, not days or weeks, and doesn't require a specialized skill set. Typically, this involves, creating a service account somewhere, possibly installing a little agent that takes a couple minutes to set up, and then filling in a form. And that's all you need to do. That means that it doesn't require, heavy integration. It doesn't require a large exercise of data modeling. We're going to do that heavy lifting for you. You just point us at the data source, whether it's ServiceNow or another data source that sits alongside it, and be able to pull that. And once we connect to those data sources, we're going to query those data sources live. So when you load any report or gauge or functionality, we're going to pull that data for you immediately live so that you're not relying on old, daily or weekly dumps of data. You're actually getting that full up-to-the-minute integration. And then the ability to combine it across data sources. So if you have your call volume data in a phone system like Avaya or Cisco, and ServiceNow is holding your IT service management data, you can get all of that in one view without a heavy amount of effort and without a heavy skill set. And being able to move that quickly means that you can connect to data that you wouldn't be able to connect to before, things that live in spreadsheets or things that live in, Access databases that in the past would have been, you wouldn't have been able to unleash because the amount of time it would have taken to connect to it would have made it not worth your time to do that. So that's our goal, is to really easily unleash that data. And the way that we're able to do that is by taking a different approach than the way that folks have tried to do this in the past. So the typical approach to unleashing data is to try and create a data warehouse. So anything that goes out beyond the reports that are available within the product, you copy all of it into a central repository, typically using batch, whether it's weekly or monthly or daily, copying it into a single location and then doing a lot of data manipulation to make it reportable in that data warehouse. Then you have a small population of highly skilled report writers who build the reports on top of that data warehouse, and they publish it to users who can view those reports. But if those users have issues with the reports or want to see things differently, they have to go back to the beginning, either changing the data warehouse or asking the report writer to change the reports. They don't have direct access to the data themselves. They can't get their hands on it in that way. So what this often can create is a resource bottleneck and requiring, a few people to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting of reporting for the whole organization. So the way that we approach unleashing data is by having our cloud platform, Explore Analytics, and it connects to systems using standard drivers. So whether it's a ServiceNow data source or Salesforce data source or Google applications, or whether it's, databases within your network, such as, being able to connect to relational databases, existing applications inside your network. Regardless of where that data is, we're connecting to it live. We're not copying the data to Explore Analytics. This is really key. It means that this isn't a big project. It's not something that's complex. It's something that you can get ready to go in a matter of minutes with ServiceNow or with other data sources. And you can already be starting to unlock value and unleash your data without having to put in a lot of time and money investment into getting that stuff started. Once you connect to that data, our goal is to make it as easy as asking the question to actually explore it. So drag and drop down functionality to run reports, things that users who understand the data can understand without having to understand a lot of other concepts in terms of, this or that or the other. And then being able to publish that in a way that's live, that's interactive, and for ServiceNow customers in a way that's really seamless with your existing ServiceNow implementation and very easy to use. So that's a lot of the key in terms of how we've approached building this business intelligence platform that makes it really ideal for connecting and unleashing ServiceNow data as well as other IT data, because you want something that can very quickly and easily and in an agile way represent that data so that you can use that in the future. So now I'm actually going to show the product and let it do its own talking so that you can see what exactly I mean when I'm talking about this and how easy is this actually to get for your users. And through this, I'm also going to walk through some examples of what data our customers have been successful in unleashing in the past, right? What kinds of problems are they solving that they aren't able to solve other ways, and how are we helping those organizations understand their IT environment? These are just a few selected examples. What's really great is that this is a tool for building these reports. So whether it's custom tables or custom ways of looking at the data, we can accommodate those as well. But I think there's some very common ways of looking at data and approaching data that we're going to show today that we've seen, from among our customers. So what we're looking at right now is the Explore Analytics reports around today's incident, and we're looking at it within ServiceNow. So this is something that's very key in terms of how we're able to help unleash for ServiceNow customers. Right, a lot of business intelligence tools or reporting tools are going to ask your users to leave the system that they're working day-to-day in and go somewhere else to consume that data. We're able, through our best-in-breed integration, to actually give that to them in context of ServiceNow. So this isn't in a different user interface. It's in the ServiceNow user interface. I can publish these Explore Analytics gauges. The same standard ServiceNow functionality of dashboards is available here. So if I go to add content, I can add any content from ServiceNow or from Explore Analytics to this dashboard, right? So here's the gadgets that exist currently in ServiceNow. And then with Explore Analytics, here are the Explore Analytics reports that are available that I can present. Another thing that's very key about this is that because I'm logged into ServiceNow, I'm automatically logged into Explore Analytics. And I want to underline this point for a couple of reasons. One is, again, that seamlessness of user experience. I don't have to have a separate password, separate credentials, separate understanding of Explore Analytics. I don't have to know that there's a separate tool that's delivering these reports to me. Just by logging into ServiceNow, I'm logged into Explore Analytics. The other point that's key is that because of the way we've developed our integration, all of these reports are respecting the user's role, their location, all of the things that you've built into your service model. Typically, business intelligence tools, if you want to have those reports respect that, you have to build it back in. Whereas for us, again, as part of the ServiceNow interface, the same way that they're used to doing it today, they come in, they see their reports, and it's from their perspective in their world. And for any of these reports, they're fully interactive. So if I want to see what these two low-priority incidents are, I click View Details, I get this list view of incidents, and then I can drill through to actually open up the record that's behind it in a new tab. So I still have that ability to get from the high-level data down to the details and open up the records themselves. So I have this set of reports that's showing me what's going on today with incidents, and I'm always a couple of clicks away from the actual incident that I'm working in. So I don't have to have my my day-to-day working environment disrupted. So in terms of how we're helping to unleash this data in a way that's easy for folks to see and understand beyond what they might be able to get today, right? I have this, quick gauges that are showing me what's going on by incidents and priority, but I have some more advanced things that are going on here. So one is I'm able to do things like calculations of the average age of incidents, right? So I can see currently for my queue or various queues within the organization, how old are those incidents that are out there, right? So I can focus my work based on, where are we getting ahead, where are we falling behind, rather than just priority or other ways of looking at things. I also have this ability to really navigate things geographically. So, for instance, if I want to know, what are these clusters of incidents that are going on in a particular place, I can see that, right? So, new ways of viewing and understanding the data that's going to get me down to what's going on at this moment throughout my organization. Similarly, I have the ability to put together multiple processes here. So this is a report that's showing me what were the last 7 days changes and today's incidents by the class of CI. So we made a lot of changes to software recently, and there's also seems to be a number of incidents related to that. And if I wanted to see what those changes are, again, I have that same drill-through capability that's going to show me those changes or those incidents right here. I also have a little bit more of an analytical view onto things. So if I want to see, for today's incidents, what are the top causes? This is showing me, what those categories are, for instance. And I can see cumulatively how much that represents. So right now I have this cutoff line that's showing me that 2/3 of my questions are either hardware or inquiry questions. So again, it's helping me prioritize and understand what's behind what's going on today to be able to view that in a more complete way. That's one level of understanding is what's going on today, what's the work I need to do in front of me, and how do I view that in a way that's very easy for me to understand. But we also want to be able to look a little bit more long-term, and this is where you really start to get into the power of unleashing the data, is understanding what's behind the incidents that are in the backlog. So for instance, looking a little bit deeper at that aging, being able to do a category breakdown. So this is showing per part of my organization, what types of incidents are they opening up, right? So I can see that the development team is opening up more questions around software, and support is entirely opening up inquiry and help questions. So again, making it very easy to see and understand what that data is. Or, this is something that's using a little bit more of a historical trend, a monthly backlog. So I can see the created, the closed, and the backlogs for my organization. Let's stay on this report for a moment and see a little bit more of what Explore Analytics gets you from a user perspective. One of the keys of these reports is that they're very interactive. So if I want to actually see a period of this, so let's say from July to December of 2013, I can just drag onto this report and it's going to show me a little bit closer, what's going on. I can add value labels or remove them or view them as bars. However, it makes sense to me as the viewer of the report to see this data. And that's really key. It's a lot of power that allows me as the user to understand this. If I wanted to look for September to drill down to another report that's going to show me the data weekly, I can do that, right? So again, making it very easy for me to narrow my focus and understand more. Now, let's say I'm a user who has the right to edit this, and I'd like to see a little bit deeper. I'm going to open this up in a editing view, and I'm going to make a copy of this so I don't delete the original. And I'm going to show how easy it is to actually manipulate and understand this. So right now we're looking at the created, closed, and the backlog. And I'm going to say, show me just the backlog here. Right, so now I can see this is how my backlog has changed over time. I can see when it's been big or it's been small. But let's say I don't want to see the backlog itself. I want to see how it's changed over time, right? Getting a little bit more analytical, getting a deeper level of understanding of this. What I can do is go to the backlog and say, show this to me as a % difference. So it's going to show me how has this changed for month over month. And now I'm viewing this and I can see, here we had a over 1,000% increase in our backlog. All of a sudden, I know where the problem is. I know where I should be focusing, which is what was going on in April that threw off our numbers. Whereas before, it wasn't necessarily as easy to see. I can also get a sense of the trend line. So, it looks like the trend line is slowly increasing. So it looks like I should be paying a little bit more attention and understanding, why this is the way it is. I can do a year over year just by clicking to see, how has 2012 versus 2013 or 2014 been affected it, or look at it. So again, I have a lot of tools to very easily, just by dragging and dropping, using a few menu items, to get deeper understanding of what's going on in my backlog. How do I understand how my incidents have changed over time? Right, so I can look at these kinds of indicators side by side as well. So this is an example that's showing what's the change in volume and the change in resolve time for my different groups. So, this group decreased the number of incidents, and they also decreased the time that it takes to resolve them. And I can see that, group over group, quarter over quarter, year over year, et cetera. And again, this is all live data. I can always drill through to the data that sits behind it to understand the indicators that sit behind that. We've talked a lot about incidents and kind of that level of support, but what's really key is that this can be, a very global and a very business-focused way of looking at this. So, this is a dashboard that's looking at this performance of business services, right? Taking a step back from the individual incidents to a broader view of business service performance. So let's take a look at what we can see here now. One aspect of this is I can see these kinds of calculations and the deeper understanding of what's going on. So for my different business services, I can see what was the average number of outages, the total time that those instances were down, but using a calculation represent what the cost of the business was. So, if you'll notice, PeopleSoft was not down as much as e-commerce was, but it actually cost more to the business. So I have more of an incentive to track down the issues with PeopleSoft, even though those issues, might not have led to as many outages. So seeing things in different ways might be able to help understand that. Same with generating the uptime, so I can see, which of my services are performing the best, or the mean time between failures, right? Again, another calculation that's taking a step beyond the data itself, applying some business logic to it to represent, okay, which ones are going the longest without failure. I can also see, for each business service, what was the top cost. So using this drop down, I can say, okay, for electronic measurements, here's what the issue was, or for PeopleSoft CRM. So again, all of these different services you can get to, and it's really across any of the parts of the platform. So, a question came in that was about, what can we take a look at? Is it all just incidents? I talked about incidents and SLAs, but it really is across the platform. So, for instance, the change management, being able to understand, this is looking at a % difference in failed changes, or the performance on SLA for changes, so I can see which was breached, which was met, and what that target is. I can even combine things across different processes. So this is showing me, for a given point in time, what's been the number of changes versus the number of incidents in my environment, right? So I can really look across process in that way. I can also look at things like project management or cost management. So this is showing me, a project management portfolio. And this might be data that's within ServiceNow, or if you're using a third-party project management tool or tracking it in spreadsheets, we can pull in that data and represent it in ServiceNow as well. So, for example, this is the animated project portfolio that shows me across the bottom, % complete, vertically, are we ahead or behind the target? And then I can see how that unfolds over time. So I can see that this project is racing ahead. I can see some of these other projects are not necessarily on track. And I have that way of looking at things, or looking at, the budget cost versus the actual cost of a project, and which ones are performing the best. So again, how do you want to look at your IT world? What parts of your IT processes are most key to be able to look at? Is the data that we're looking at within ServiceNow, or is it not within ServiceNow? For example, one report that I have available is being able to look at incidents. Actually, if I pull this open here. Right, so being able to look at a trend of incidents and a trend of calls from a third-party tool, right, and being able to represent those together. So just to underscore this, part of this is ServiceNow data, and part of it is not. And, I can see here the trend of open incidents and the trend of calls, and they might be coming from two different data sources, but I'm able to represent them to my users together in one place. So we've been talking quite a bit in terms of being able to, being able to get this data and present this. So I wanted to show a little bit more in terms of how we're getting to this data and how this is actually being defined. So in order to be able to actually connect to ServiceNow or connect to other data sources through the Explore Analytics interface, I can say I'd like to add a new data source and say, connect to ServiceNow. And all I need to do is download an update set, provide some information, set some properties, and we're going to build out all of the data, right? So any of the tables that you have within ServiceNow, whether they're custom or whether they're not, whether they're, something that's internally involved, we can get at and understand all that data. But we also have the ability to look at, things like, relational databases or cloud sources of data, being able to connect to things like Salesforce or other platforms. So that's how we're able to kind of pull all this data together in a way that doesn't require a lot of time and labor from you and from your organization. And then, once you've pulled that data in, like let's say I wanted to pull in that, call management data, right? Then I can create a new view on, the calls table. Say I'd like to see that as a trend, so trend of calling information. I say, okay, what type of chart do I want to have? Do I want to visualize it as a timeline? Do I want to, create it as a category or a bar? Right, do I want to do an XY comparison? So in this case, I'll say I'd like to do it as a trend. And, just group it by, opened by quarter or opened by week, opened by hour, just depending on what the density of the data is and how far into this I want to go, right? If I wanted to break it down further to say, what was the company that called or what that was, I can do that using just those drop downs. So you can see that, connecting to the data source is just a form. Being able to represent that data, is really just some drop downs and some forms to be able to, understand that and present that to those users. And once I have this report and I want to share it to the environment, I can schedule it to be sent out on a regular basis. Or I can publish it, publicly or to ServiceNow. So you'll see that when I go to publish this, I can publish this live. So when the user views the report, I'll see the data, or frozen, so that people will see this the way that I published it at the time that I published it, right? So for a live report, it makes sense for things like ServiceNow dashboards where users are going to be, interacting with it directly. A frozen report might be more useful when it comes to, presentation to executive management or to external auditors, where you want to make sure that what you've pulled together, you can really do there and really have them see in the same way that you've seen it. And then I can say publish to ServiceNow. I select which ServiceNow environment I want to publish it to, say, how I want that to be presented. I have controls that can show or hide various things. And then now I can add this within ServiceNow. Here's the ServiceNow content block that I can add. Or I can send a direct link to someone. I can also embed this into a SharePoint site or another website if I wanted to. One thing that you can do with these content blocks is also publish them into a content management portal if you're using that. So this is kind of a mock reporting portal that I put together that, kind of, again, formats and presents this data in a different way that might be more appealing and engaging to non-technical users to understand what's going on in the environment, what's going on with, our assets or with our financials, right? So this is an example that shows some asset statistics. What's the average age of our assets? What's the value per head of the assets? What's our potential exposure from unlicensed software, leveraging ServiceNow software asset management capability. So it can be quite limitless what you can present out to those users in that way. So if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to use the chat. Make sure that you direct the chat to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that folks might have. But we've kind of given a overview of how you can get a lot of transparency, to the ServiceNow data and unleash that. Many of these come from customer examples. A customer of ours, they found us, just through Googling and finding a YouTube video on how to build these reports. They connected to a ServiceNow environment within a few minutes, and we're showing live data to their managers within an hour. And then we're publishing it to dashboards. We're giving transparency to hundreds of users worldwide, within a minute to hour of getting started with Explore Analytics. So the goal is for this to be something that's very quick to interact with, that's very easy to connect to, whether the data is within ServiceNow or in another system. So if there's any questions, feel free to leverage them in the chat. So one question is just about, what can we leverage from within ServiceNow or from within other data sources? So if I take a look at data sources here, I can pull open, my ServiceNow data source, and all of the tables and information that's within ServiceNow. So the data certification application, whatever those processes are, they're all available here. You can decide whether folks can see or not see them, because again, sometimes this list can be quite daunting, if you're looking at the full list, but you can decide whether folks have access to them. And we'll leverage the knowledge of what they have access to within ServiceNow, but from anywhere within the platform, live interactions with those tables. So that's really key to be able to say, how do you better understand the data that's anywhere within ServiceNow? So a question was just asked. A common stumbling point that customers run into, the question was asked in terms of ServiceNow Service Catalog. There's some, if you're familiar with the ServiceNow data model, there's some barriers to being able to report against things within the Service Catalog and the native reporting, typically ServiceNow catalog variables. So, this is something as part of the integration with ServiceNow, we natively understand things like display values, reference fields, and things like service catalog variables. So, the way that it works is that if there's, a variable that we want to report against, all I have to do is say which variable do I want to report against, and we automatically translate that into terms that ServiceNow understands and reports that, directly to the user. So yes, we are able to report against things like, how many BlackBerries are folks requesting versus iPhone, what types of things are people requesting, things like in the virtualization space, what types of servers are people demanding, right? Because the service catalog gives you a sense of what the demand is, and then the data that's in the CMDB helps you understand what's going on from a fulfillment. Yeah. So one question is to say, when does Explore Analytics make sense, right? How do you know if Explore Analytics is a good fit? So there's a few cases that I've seen where customers say, okay, this is when I know I need Explore Analytics. So one question that you can ask yourself or ask the folks around you is, are you able to get the kind of historical and long-term understanding of what's going on? I think the day-to-day ServiceNow reporting is really focused around, kind of operational metrics in terms of how many incidents are open and what category are they. But, the question is, what KPIs, what key metrics are you using to manage your IT environment? And are you able to get that visibility that you need to see, is my backlog growing or shrinking over time? Is my mean time to repair increasing or decreasing over time? So that's definitely one question I would ask to see, are you a good fit for Explore Analytics? Another important question that I often ask is all the data that you need to understand your IT environment in ServiceNow, or is there other data that you'd like to see alongside it, right? So going back to that example of the trend of calls, right, the trend of calls versus the trend of incidents. That's something that, if all the data isn't in ServiceNow, ServiceNow reporting isn't going to help you, and it could be a very lengthy and expensive process to bring that together in other spheres. We had one customer that for a particular set of reports they were putting together, they were building in Excel, and in Excel it has to be rebuilt week after week, and it could be an hour or 2 hours of productive time being spent on massaging these reports together. So that's another important question I would ask is, are you trying to pull together data from multiple sources? And then the last one I would ask is, are you able to give users themselves this kind of transparency and interactive, are the end users who are consuming the data, are they satisfied with what they're seeing? Are they getting the questions that they have answered? And if they need to ask another question, are they coming to you and asking you to build them reports and drive a lot of work for them? Or, are they able to get that themselves? I think that's a really key reason why customers are choosing Explore Analytics. So another question was asked in terms of how we're actually tracking the trends. So if you want to see how something evolves over time, it's really easy to do. So let's say I have this aging report, right? This is showing me how old the incidents are currently. If I want to see how this changes over time, all I have to do is go here to File and say Track Trend and say, all right, I'd like you to snapshot the results of this report for me on a regular basis. So it's very easy for me to go from a live report to, to a trended report very easily without having, again, to do something separate or have a different skill set. Yeah, so one question that was just asked was in terms of if folks are interested in understanding more about this, you can follow up with us and we'd be happy to let you understand more. but we also have the ability for a free 30-day trial. So, and we'd be happy to share this. It's just, you can find it from the website, but it's my.exploreanalytics.com/registration. It's a free 30-day trial. So it's fully featured. You can connect it to ServiceNow and to other systems and very easily get started with that and kind of see, what's useful, what's not useful, etc. So one question is, what's the ideal profile for, folks who are interested in leveraging Explore Analytics? And I think it really has, a pretty broad application. It's really folks who are interested in getting to a higher level of maturity of understanding your data and who are, interested in getting hands-on with the data and really understanding it for themselves. It can be business process owners who aren't getting the visibility that they need. It can be, executives who want to understand deeper, or decision makers within the process. In terms, and whether you're using ServiceNow or you're using other systems or a combination of both, it's really just about, are you seeing challenges connecting to that data today? Or otherwise. Just checking to see if I've missed any other questions. Christina, did you see any other questions in the queue that I may have overlooked?
I have not. Nope.
Great. All right. So if there are no other questions, I think we've tackled quite a few of them. Feel free to reach out to us and either through InSource or through Explore Analytics. We'd be happy to give a personal demonstration to anyone within your organization, do something more tailored, or help with an evaluation that might be specific to your data, so that you can really get a sense directly as to what would you actually get out of it? What would that transparency be? But thank you all for your, attendance and your, many great questions, deep questions that came out. So we're looking forward to helping you unleash your data.